The views and opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are their own and do not reflect the views of the podcast creators, hosts, or that of Blue Door, CAEH, or their partners. The podcast may cover sensitive topics and discuss triggering issues. Listener discretion is advised. The content is intended for informational and discussion purposes only. Thank you for tuning in.
Like to acknowledge the original stewards of whose lands this podcast is recorded on. In York Region, we recognize we're on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, and that this is the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. In Vancouver, we acknowledge that we are on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, whose presence on these lands continue to this day.
Welcome, fellow housers, to another episode of On the Way Home. I'm your host, Michael Braithwaite, and I hail from the great organization of Blue Door. Blue Door is an organization just north of Toronto, working in York, Peel, and Durham region, helping our most vulnerable with affordable and supportive housing of all different types. We do emergency housing, transitional housing, longer term and supportive housing. We wrap healthcare support, so work with our healthcare providers to make sure health and housing go hand in hand. And we create employment opportunities through Construct, our construction social enterprise program that launches people into the trades where they make a livable wage right off the bat. And guess what? They then can contribute to digging us out of this housing crisis by building the housing we need across the country. We do not do this podcast alone. We do it with our amazing partners at the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. They have a huge conference coming up. It's always amazing. This year in Halifax, you might still qualify for their early bird discount. Check it out. They have speakers from all across the country, all around the world. They've released the whole program for the conference. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. We're going to have many of their speakers on the show as a preview before the conference. So wait for that. If you want to see all the great things that they are up to, and there are too many, it could be an entire podcast on its own, go to cah.ca. And find out all the wonderful things that our partners at the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness are doing. Very cool. We have an awesome guest today. I'll have to talk about this housing crisis, and we need more people to step up with tangible solutions, right? And there's not just one solution. And our guest today, Keith Gowans, he did just that. He was with Habitat for Humanity in Niagara for many, many years, and then wanted to do something a little different that would contribute to the solution. So he started a group called Aloft Housing. So ALOFT Housing. And Aloft is, you call them tiny homes, but really these are small homes that they can build really, really quick. And they can add to parking lots, to they can use as secondary suites, all sorts of different uses. They're incredible homes that are super energy efficient. They crane over and get into onto land and up and running in like record time. And they're really maintenance. They're quite maintenance free, energy efficient, so truly affordable. And so they're part of this conversation, right? And many municipalities are reaching out to Aloft to say, how do we get these in? Better use of parking lots. How do we put these in backyards? How municipalities are giving incentives for people to do this. So you can get forgivable loans to help with the cost. People are putting them in their families that are saying, where are my kids going to live? When they get older, they're putting them in their backyard. So you have multiple family dwellings on one site. So many different uses for this. They come fully stacked. So you can get them with all furniture, a washer and dryer in one. Like I said, he showed us around this. I toured around one of these units in Niagara. It was really incredible. Just everything you could think of, the thought put into these things, and with like 20, 30-year guarantees on roofing, siding, everything inside, really. So it's so low maintenance if you're an organization that doesn't have those dollars to keep up with ongoing costs of maintenance. Blue Door, my organization, is taking a look at one that we could put in the backyard of a home we own to add 2-bedroom house for senior men. So very cool. We talked with Keith about his journey into this work, what the reception's been, what the challenges have been. We talk about the houses themselves, how they're built, how quick he can do them, the cost, and much, much more. I think you're going to love this conversation. Let's go to it right now. So happy to have you on the On the Way Home podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Keith, we start the show every time with our guests with the same question, and it's a little different for everyone. And that is with the question, what does home mean to you?
Wow, right off the bat, it's a big question. You know, I'm sure a lot of people think that home means so much different things to very many different people, right? So, my background in Habitat, I used to own this Habitat shirt. I mean, I had lots of shirts, but basically, it had a lot of words associated with what home means and arranged in the shape of a house. And I got so many comments on that. They're simple words like love and family, strength and stability, self-reliance, all that other fun stuff. But home means so many different things to different folks. I'm sure Blue Door, for example, it probably, I would say if you ask most of the residents, it's support and community, right? So others outside of this might just say it just provides equity, or this is where traditions are, or my kids, they grew up there, or what all that means. But for me, it's pretty simple. It's shelter. It's just a place. No matter how your day goes, you can go home, and it's a place of warmth and relief. And I was fortunate enough to have a house and to have a nice family. And now with my wife and our kids, we're luckily enough to have that as well. And but many people don't, and it's tough. Around here where our shop is in St. Catharines, there's just a lot of displaced individuals who don't have homes, and we're just trying to provide solutions for that. But it means much more than that to me. But I would say overall, you have to have food and you have to have shelter to sustain your life, right?
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks for that. Let's talk. You mentioned a little bit of your journey into this work. Always interested to know more about what makes up our guests on the show. Talk to us a little bit about your journey into the work you're doing at Aloft.
Well, for years, I mean, we focused. My background was residential construction. I've managed a variety of other businesses. And as luck have it, I found my doorstep at Habitat for Humanity called me, and worked for years with that fine organization, close to 14 years. And that obviously is focused on the efforts of housing families. So at Aloft, certainly we wanted to just increase the impact of that and build faster, build efficient, durable are things kind of our staples that we go with. But basically, what we decided to do is start at the biggest need, and this probably better than anyone is that single occupancy for housing is such a huge need, and something that goes almost continually neglected in the form of new house starts and things like that. So we focused on that. So we started with a basic premise of land and where things are. Land is tough to get. It's you can't make any more of it, right? And there's a high cost that's associated with that. So what we tried to do is focus ourselves inward, or focus ourselves within the urban core. And everybody and no matter what town you look at, or city or municipality, everyone has spaces that are underutilized. And one of the largest ones that are underutilized, because it really had minimal amount of research done on it in the early ons of cars, is parking lots. And there's tons of parking lots that are everywhere. And the most times that they're used are the two highest seasons of the year. And other than that, they're designed for that, but they're really underutilized. And outside of that too, there's a lot of folks that, now are actually planning a little bit better, making use of land better. But there's a lot of folks too that have really large yards, really deep lots and things like that too. So we're capitalizing on those things. But in the greater sense of the word, we're big believers in developing the urban core. So bringing in more people close to all the amenities, transportation hubs, shops, all those types of things, and making more eyes in the city. That's an old forget the planner that made that, but or that created that phrase, but we wanted to kind of bring people in a little bit more. So what we did was we created a way or a method to use these spaces, or more importantly, I guess, add to the existing use. So what we developed over the course of talking to a lot of people and years, to working away at this, is a quickly deployable but minimum impact housing system. And I'll really get into a little bit of that, but basically, the system that we developed, it doesn't really have any complex concrete foundations. We use a cylindrical screw method that does not disrupt anything. There's no trucks, right? There's a small little device that installs this, that can go into the backyards of things. Obviously, it can go into a variety of different circumstances, even off-grid type communities or forests and things like that, and install these things. And as quickly as we can install them, we can take it out. But this is actually what the structure rests on. And we install our units in a matter of days. They come 99% complete, fully furnished, and they're quite effective. We make every use of the space that's certainly there. But it's just as quickly as we can put them in, we can change that, and we can take them out, relocate them to space, and that's just in a matter of days, Michael. So we can do this very effectively without any disruption or any you and I know, or many of the listeners know too, that construction on site, the old way of doing it, and the current way of doing it still is a lot of disruption to your neighbors, the surrounding areas. The streets are dirty and whatnot. We don't really have any of that, because we can come in and in a day install these the supports for these structures. And then the next day we're craning in our housing, and then we're plugging it in and switching it on. So it's really, really, really quick. So that's in a nutshell. That's kind of what the system's really all about. But what we did was we started looking at that parking space, and a parking space is typically, it's 9 feet by 18 feet long. And it's a defined space, of course. We worked with a lot of architects, and almost like a model, we kind of chipped away at that model, and we made use of really every single square or every millimeter to its fullest, and really making the spaces not only work in one way, but multifunctionally as well. So we have created this beautiful structure, focusing on, I'd probably say, 3 main principles. That is in the design. So something we always look at is first of all, we have to make it durable. In the rental market, certainly, I'm sure a lot of the property developers are out there, and their maintenance guys that are constantly kind of going up to these places saying, if only we didn't have drywall, we could, we're constantly fixing this stuff up or repainting it. And none of our units, they have the ability to have drywall in it, but for a little bit more cost, you could actually have no drywall in no visible drywall, and that's important. The outside structure and the inside structure is really beautiful. We tried to kind of really focus a lot on the aesthetic as well, making sure that a lot of the finishes that we have look nice, but again, focus on the durability. And then behind that wall, we want to make sure that it's efficient as possible. So we are trying to lower the operating costs as much as possible, which is the long-term detriment to every building and those costs, unfortunately, as you know, and I know, don't go down. Gas is always going up and electricity is always going up, and these types of things cost a lot of money to operate. So we're trying to make these as efficient as possible, and we're constantly trying to really look at evolving that too, as well as if there's any new things that are coming out that make it more efficient, more durable, or we like that a little bit better. We try to enhance the system all the time. So those are the types of things that we've been kind of working on. And we find we've been getting a lot of uptick, certainly from a variety of different folks.
So if I kind of sum that up, this is better use of space, right? Because people will say, "Oh, we have no place to put housing, more housing." Yeah, sure you do. Tons of parking lots around, and these can be raised if you check out the website, and we'll give that information soon. But you can raise these up so you can park underneath. You can put it in your backyard, right? You can, and a lot of people, you're talking about your own children. Maybe that's what you look at in the future for your kids. If you want to stay together as a family unit, you put one of these in your yard. They are truly affordable because once you have them up, they're so energy efficient. Your cost of actually running your housing will be great. It takes a couple of days to put them together, right? Because you're really just putting these screws in the ground, lifting it over, putting it on, hook up. You're good to go. You can create it right over a house. And they're super durable. I mean, they're beautiful looking houses. I've toured your site. They're gorgeous houses and durable outside to inside. There's, I think you're talking about 20-year warranties on the roof and on the siding. You showed us the inside bathroom wall that you could take a sledgehammer to. That looks like grouty, but it's not. So for organizations like Blue Door or housing providers across the country, I mean, where you're like, hey, it's one thing to build this house or put this house in, but how am I going to maintain it? Very, very low maintenance. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much for highlighting all those points again. I greatly appreciate it. We've tried to kind of create something, and we're constantly rejigging it a lot as well. But we wanted to kind of focus on all those types of things you just mentioned because they are costs, right? These types of things, they add up in the long term. And for housing organizations specifically, those are yearly costs that never go away. So if we can do anything to shorten those or limit those, it's only going to add more housing in the end. So we think we've got it. Again, like I say, we're constantly looking at it again, but I do appreciate all the kind words.
And in talking to your team, your head of construction, I think Craig, we were talking to him. He was saying, "Hey, give me your postal code. I'll tell you if I can put this in your backyard." Because you can look at the size. Because most places across Ontario, you can put that secondary suite in. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah, but with the new More Homes, More Choices Act, Bill 23, now people actually have the ability to really kind of add to their housing stock, and maybe we were developing one for a person who has a 7-year-old daughter. He's going to buy one of these houses. He's going to put it. He's fortunate enough to have a little bit of a wider lot. We're going to put it right beside his garage there. He's going to rent it out. And then when his daughter becomes of age and she wants to live in it, that's where she can kind of live. At the same time, after she can move it away if she wants to and reinstall it somewhere else, right? So all those types of things are very, very possible for folks these days. That bill specifically is municipalities now are actually, again, they've been mandated to have certain requirements, right, or certain numbers. The bill actually stipulates on municipalities, it gives them mandates or gives them numbers to kind of get up to that 150,000 houses in 10 years. And because of that, they are incentivizing the residents. So there's a lot of municipalities right now who actually have legislation in the works, bylaws, that they're incentivizing homeowners now to say, if you put one of these in the backyard, and maybe you keep it at fair market value rent or maybe slightly below, here's some money in it. So sometimes it's substantial. I know in Toronto or in your area, neck of the woods, it's 50,000 is a forgivable loan, and there's another, I think it's another $17,000 in permit incentives that goes towards the cost of that unit per unit. So if municipalities are kind of getting on board and they incentivize things, this is what types of spur, and this is what spurs the change, right? And this is what really makes it more prevalent, or more it incentivizes people to actually do these types of things. So we're really excited about all these changes, and certainly we're getting comments and calls from a lot of those types of folks. For municipalities as well, we've had several come down here and tour our modules and have a talk with them, saying, you know, what else do you need? What else do you need us to do? Because they're looking, just as we're as our housing, or you're looking for solutions, and many of your listeners are as well. They're also looking for those solutions, and they want to make sure that the legislation that they're putting in place, or these bylaws that they're putting in place, not only helps out the residents, but they're talking to the source of the manufacturers of these things, and they're saying, what can we do to kind of help spur some of this development, or increase that development? And that's something that hasn't happened before. You know, they're you know, they are always, or were in the past, have that, I guess, feeling from others that this is only a slow process at City Hall, or things like this just take forever. But they're really, really listening, and they're really, really trying to kind of make those changes. And I've had so many conversations with so many different people at the planning level, and certainly at the council level as well, that are really behind this movement, because the crisis, as you know, is so big. It's going to be tough. So they're looking outside the box. This is what we have to do. You know, our solution's great. We're constantly evolving it, but it's a drop in the pan. We need more, right? We just need more housing.
Yeah, it's certainly a great solution. Let's talk about some specs. The one bedroom I saw. Now, this one bedroom, so listeners understand, in it, when Keith says it comes and you drop in, you're good to rent 2 days later, right? Depending on how long it takes to hook up some services. But you've got a washer, dryer in one. You've got a bed that kind of pulls out from a wall that you can put back in. You've got a coffee table that turns into a dining table for four, where you could slide the chairs under the couch. I mean, it's such a great use of space. A little piece that comes down that acts as your desk if you're working from home. You got a skylight in the washroom, like gorgeous house. You've got, instead of blinds that break and look dirty, you press a button on your phone and the windows kind of shade themselves. You've got solid doors that really give you the privacy that it doesn't allow for noise. And again, as we mentioned before, very much climate controlled. Talk to me a little bit about what is the square footage? What is the cost for a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom?
Well, that depends. I mean, we've developed the model that you just cited there with all the features, and you're really selling it for us. So I really appreciate that. But that particular unit is ranging now, because it's a matter of selection. Some of those things that you cited, sometimes organizations or people just don't want them, right? So we tend now to, in our conversations, where we wanted to really, when we started, we wanted to make a toaster. We wanted to make, 50,000 toasters, and here you go. We thought we had a product for that, and it worked really well, and it does. But people are coming to us and saying, well, what if I don't do this, or what if we could make this a little bit bigger? And that's where the conversation grows as far as the pricing range goes. But depending upon what they want, an added balcony, or they don't want the balcony, they want more internal living space. Maybe they don't want the electronic smart tint windows. Maybe they don't want the washer, the dryer, because they have one inside. So, but the product range basically is out the door. I'd probably say it's anywhere between 160,000 to 185,000. And then the installation is always site specific. It's, it depends upon the transportation costs, obviously, what the infrastructure is and how we're going to be tying in, a variety of different things. The soil conditions don't really matter with with this method of our install. They can go through sand and mud bogs, and they can't penetrate bedrock, but everything else is pretty much, they can go through limestone and a variety of other things. So those types of things are easy to go, but that's the range. So we start with that. We start with showing them what you just saw, and really bringing them through and saying, what would you like us to do? And what we've really evolved ourselves into is customization is becoming something that we never thought that we're not really hesitant to do it, but we never thought that we would be doing it. But now we are. We're really kind of we're working with a lot of people, and our models are developing too. We want to kind of keep all those same cores that we talked about the efficiency and the aesthetic and the durability. But now our models are we have a variety of different models that we're expanding to, and we're getting pricing for those as well. But that's what it starts with first, and that conversation starts and it evolves. We're a one-stop shop. That's the nice thing about us is that process that I said. We're not only the builder, but to your previous point with what Craig does, is he really looks into what that municipality needs and how it will work within your property. And for people that just want a house but say, I don't know where to start, we're a great way to do that, because they can come to us, call us up and say, here's our address, here's what we want to do, here's the kind of sizing, or here's the solution that we want to kind of do. And maybe even here's what we want to make on the thing as well, because it might not just be housing their kids or their parents or something like that, but maybe they want some rental income. So here's kind of what we want. So we guide them through the entire process from municipality talk first to installation and thereafter with our warranty system. So we've tried to envelop that whole process, making it, I would kind of say, turnkey or carefree for the people. And we're likable people, so it all goes well.
Talk about timing, Greg. So we say, hey, you know what? Love it. Got the land. We could do this. How long from I want this model to up and running? I know it will vary depending on permits, but.
Well, yeah, and it depends on obviously what they want. So some of those customizations, they tweak those. So there is that. And the simple process of what is our reality these days as far as the supply and demand goes. Our windows usually take 2 to 3 months to get in. So when it gets to permit, once that permit gets triggered, then we can order the windows, and then we put it into our shop queue. The process doesn't take very long to build. We want to currently right now we're building anywhere between 12 to 14 weeks. We want to, 10 to 14 weeks, depending upon size, of course, and how many modules there are. We want to shorten that down as much as possible too. And then there's the other factor of logistics, getting it there and installation. But what we're trying to kind of create is, as we're building the unit, we're putting in some of that infrastructure in it, like I say, in a day or two, and then we're facilitating that delivery. So overall, I mean, it's a long answer, I guess, to a short question, but it just really depends on the circumstance.
But certainly a lot quicker than stick construction and doing that kind of right?
Well, from that perspective, yes. I mean, that's what we get so many comments for, the 2-bedroom module that we're doing right now for a couple. That's the first thing that they said to me is, I do not want to disrupt my neighbors. I do not want to disrupt the renters that I have in my house. There's 2 in the house. They're adding the 3rd because they can do that now. And they didn't want 6 to 8 months of construction and banging and all that other stuff. They want to kind of create goodwill to their tenants and goodwill to their neighbors. So for us, we were a perfect solution for them, because we installed the foundation settings in 4 hours. We have the trench there. That's a half a day, and then the next day we're delivering it, and that's it. So we did all those other things in a matter of, while people were at work in hours, and then the crane delivery will take usually it takes about 4 hours or so, and then we're good to go. So that in one case, we were at Habitat. We used to call them blitz builds because we used to have everybody show up all at once in one day. They would go out to work. All the materials would come in, and then the house would be completely framed in with windows. And when people got back, and that's not typical, obviously, in a conventional build. But that's what we do. But we build a finished house, right? Like you said, I mean, everything comes, the furniture's even including in it when we're creating this over the house. And all we basically do is just basically plug it in, hook up the connections, and we're done. And they can start to rent the next day or house the next day, or whatever they're doing.
Incredible stuff. Very cool. Talk to me a little bit about the interest. Who you've been talking to, and where have you put these so far?
Yeah, so we're so currently right now we've got that 2-bedroom module that's going to be in Hamilton. We're talking with you had mentioned Sudbury before our conversation started here, so we're talking with some people there. We're talking to an off-grid community up north who has 400 residents. We're developing, believe it or not, that unit there and a slightly bigger one in a totally off-grid capacity. So with incineration toilets and things like that. So that project is going to be starting soon. And then, believe it or not, we're also starting this multiple level one with an elevator in it for a couple who wants their last house. They're tearing down their existing house in Niagara here. And then we're bringing in a 2-bedroom similar to what we're developing right now, and with an elevator shaft in it. So we're doing that too. So lots of resorts. We have a couple resorts that want some housing there, and then quite a few people with the ADU, what's known as ADUs in general speak, but additional dwelling units in their backyards. So we're working with 3 or 4 of them, and hopefully including Blue Door as well, in deploying those as well for them.
Yeah, very cool. Yes, actually, we heard back today that we could put in a 2-bedroom, and so, listener, well, that makes sense to us. Many nonprofits, we own housing, right? We have, and to go out and buy, especially in the GTA, Vancouver, Calgary. I mean, you could be talking, $1 million plus. Where if you have existing property, as Craig was saying, for just I think about 300,000, all installed, all done. We were quoted, you could put a brand new 2-bedroom house in the backyard and have residents in there or tenants in there right away. So it's really cool. I think it's a different option, and these are. I love the fact that they're maintenance free. That you're not looking at months of construction. That they're green, truly affordable. It's just we need different solutions, Craig. You said that across the board. What have some of the biggest challenges been? I'm sure there have. You took this on, and kudos to anyone who says, "I'm going to be part of the solution. Step out and do this." I don't know if you had hair when this started, and but what have the biggest challenges been in pushing this forward, and what are your learnings been?
Well, I mean, we. Biggest challenges. Geez, how long is this podcast really? I mean, it's what there's been a lot. So we're developing product. We're changing product continually. We're learning quite a lot as well as far as what we can and can't do. We went into this. I'm not going to say naive, but we understood the fact that what we were trying to achieve was daunting, right? Starting a housing company from scratch. We were house builders, as I mentioned before, so it's not as if we don't know how to build houses, so we certainly do. But there's been a lot of learning curve as far as certainly what the municipality and how they work. There's been other hurdles, obviously financial hurdles and things like that, which we're overcoming regularly. But overall, what we're trying to do best is not get too quick, too fast, or what other modular companies, from what I've read and some of the history of them, is they've purchased things that they don't really need necessarily, but they think that just because they're modular, they might need in the end. And our modules here, I mentioned that time frame that we're building here. They're stick frame, and we build them very simply, but they're stick frame. We don't have any at this point in stage. We don't have any automation in the systems whatsoever. It's all manual. We work with a lot of trades, bringing them in to increase our efficiencies, so we can focus on the next ones and continually working on the R&D. But those are the types of things that I guess that are not frustrating, but certainly thought provoking. And there's a lot of meetings that are around that to try to kind of solve a lot of those issues. But I can tell you that we've had a lot of overwhelming response. I mean, locally here in St. Catharines, they've brought in building officials from all over, and one of the plans, the plan that you saw for that single pod, was brought out to a chief building officials conference, and they workshopped it for two hours, just as far as how would this work, how can we incorporate this in, what can we provide feedback for as well. So as much as those hurdles are daunting, there's some of those really nice surprises that come back from people that are just willing to create change. And those are the types of things that really spur our motivation and really make us wake up today and say, boy, it's good to work, right? We're edging the needle forward slowly, but we are kind of putting it forward, which is great.
Yeah, you're doing awesome work. If people want to find out, people are interested, say, hey, maybe I want to look at this for my property, for my organization, for my municipality, where do they go? Where can they find out more?
Well, the quickest way is obviously you cited it as our website, so they can look us up on alofthousing.ca or .com, whatever they put in. We have both. That's the easiest way to start, obviously. But we're local here. We're in St. Catharines. They can come down to wine country, spend the day in wine country, come to our shop. It's we always say seeing is believing, and really looking and touching the product. The picture says 1,000 words, but really kind of enveloping yourself in the space does a lot more. They understand it a little bit more. They can kind of see and open up the doors and things like that. So we welcome people. We love having tourists come through. And quite honestly, at times it's a little bit of a revolving door. But each one of these little conversations that we have, we think we're planting the seeds for the future. And I'll put a plug out. We've got a next weekend. We're at there's a tiny home show that's happening in Ancaster. It's the Ancaster Tiny Home Show, I believe it's called. And come out to that space. You'll see a lot of things on trailers. We're not a trailer organization. We have the system that we have there, but we're going to be there. We have a booth there, so we'd love to come out and meet people there and talk it up. And that's about it.
Very cool. Listen, what you're saying is absolutely true. My team and I went, we toured, we're so impressed. We've been spreading the word ever since, because, we need solutions for small spaces. We talked about the faith community has been talking a long time to say, it's kind of in our mission. How can we support? Could you put these in parking lots of different faith communities, even if it was for 10 years, and then move them out? Because you can move them, as you said, without a lot of cost. I think this is very much one of the many solutions moving forward as we take ourselves out of this housing crisis and create more affordable housing. So thank you, Keith, to you and the team for stepping up to the challenge and providing us with this very cool solution. I encourage people, go check out Aloft Housing. Check out their website, reach out to Keith. Hey, and just listen, if you just give me their address, they can tell you whether they can fit one of these in your backyard in a matter of minutes.
You bet we can. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining today.
Thank
Let's
you,
see you next time.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate the conversation. Let's keep it going.
Thanks, man.
Okay.